We're back with another episode here on the Hard Hustle Podcast. This time, we're with Isaac in Arizona. How hot is it over there, Isaac?
It's going to be a good, 100 degrees today with some, uptick in humidity. So it's a little brutal out. It's a brutal out.
Yeah, you can keep it. As we talked about earlier, man, I've been able to not do Tucson, but I did Phoenix, Arizona, and I will never tell anybody to go there, especially in the middle of summertime.
It's this time of year. I mean, tell people to go, but just not this time of year.
My best friend, I was just talking to her, and she says, actually, if you come during the winter time, it's much better. But that's how they get you. It seems good until you come back around this type of weather, and you realize this is not it. So is it a good winter? What is winter like for you guys?
Winter is, low of, upper 50s, lower 60s. It's nice. I mean, we don't get the snow, but 45 minutes away up Mount Lemmon, we get snow. So, I mean, we can get the snow if we want, but you can go visit it for a day and come back to a nice 70, 75. So that's my kind of winter, right? I grew up on the coast of California, did my first year and a half college in Maine. I don't need the snow. I don't want the snow. It's the reason I'm here. I don't mind the heat. And we have AC. If there wasn't AC, there'd be a problem, but
Lord.
Yeah.
I didn't even tell you this when we started. I know we were kind of sharing some stories. I realized how hot it was. The first thing that I was able to experience when I went to Sedona and look at the Red Rocks is, so we're pulling up and we see these ambulance and, police out there, and we think somebody just got injured, as what the police reported. And as we're walking back out, man, we see them actually transporting a body bag from the truck to the SUV. And that was the moment I'm like, oh, it gets super hot. Like, people out here passing out and dying hot. And then we were, one of those days we were driving and we see the ambulance pulled over at a bus stop hydrating someone. I'm like, oh my God, like hearing some of these crazy stories, man, like you got to be safe when you go to Arizona. But what brought you to Arizona, Isaac? Like when we talk about these stories, this is not what brought you there, okay?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. It's the University of Arizona is actually what brought me here. It's my wife that kept me here, but ultimately, I grew up on the coast in California in the Monterey Bay Area, so beautiful place. But left and went to college in Maine. So I went from the coast of California to Maine, of all places, and for many reasons we'll discuss, that just didn't end up being the place for me. And so I'd been to Arizona once. I came out here over an Easter weekend. I had a buddy who lived out here. So I came out here in high school, visited him, and I was like, that's where I want to be. Right. And it was April. It was nice. It was warm. It wasn't brutally hot, but warm. And so I came, transferred to the University of Arizona, and a couple buddies and I stuck around, and I've been here longer than I've been anywhere else. And these are where my roots are now. And it's home. I love it.
And when you say your wife kept you there, did you meet your wife there in Arizona?
I met my wife here. She's born and raised here. Her family's all here. Wow. She made it very clear she has zero plans to go anywhere else. And so, it's where we are.
What do you think she loves about Arizona?
It's home. It's family, right? She's Hispanic, so family's a big thing, and she has a big one here. And so I think that is near and dear. I've learned a lot about family through her and her family. I mean, I grew up with my immediate family, not so much of the extended family. And here it's everybody's the family, extended family and all. So.
And you're not Latino, right?
I am not. No. So
what is your favorite? Okay, no worries. What is your favorite Latino dish?
I'm a big fan of the burrito. I like the tacos. We just had tacos here the other night and had everybody over for my niece's 30th birthday. But, I like a good carne asada burrito. I keep it simple, but that's my jam.
I was able to visit Taco Bros. You guys have that around you too?
We have Taco Bell. But not Taco Bell.
I did do Taco Bell, and I didn't go there for a while, man. I ended up getting a chicken chalupa, and I was like, wow, these are actually really good. I haven't had one in a while. Fair. But we ended up at a Taco Bros, and it was authentic tacos, man. You can see them making on the grills, and I can imagine you guys have a lot of those just authentic tacos. I don't have that in Orlando, so I can see why you go into that burrito taco space. It's kind of almost around you guys a lot.
We have, Tucson's, I think, arguably the best Mexican food in the country, and so there's no shortage of great places to get great Mexican food. So
I love it.
My little one might like Taco Bell, but when I want real Mexican food, Taco Bell is not where I'm going.
My favorite spot, and this is another thing that I wish I would have done. I didn't. I passed one. Is I love to go to Chipotle wherever I travel. Chipotle is
Really?
my place. I
Okay.
came home after eating everything I did in Arizona. My wife cooking breakfast, all these things, and I went to Chipotle the next day, and I was like, "Oh my god, this was the best meal I've
Yeah.
had all week."
Right.
Mind you,
That's funny.
wife's cooking all of that. I love
Yeah.
Chipotle, man. I know
Yeah,
it's
no,
not
that's
authentic
legit.
Mexican food,
It's
but
legit. It's legit. Yeah.
I love it. Yo, Isaac, we'll get you into the space of higher ed though, man. Like you talked
Man.
about you traveling from one side of the country to the other, you come back and then you stick with it.
Yeah,
Why?
I didn't get, I kind of backed into higher ed. I didn't get into higher ed for higher ed. I came back to higher ed for higher ed, I kind of boomerang back.
Hmm.
But ultimately, I started my career at the city of Tucson, public sector work. Kind of grew up a little there through the ranks. And then, there was this opportunity for a job that I think aligned with my skills at Pima Community College. It was the director of business systems. And so that's really how I got into it. I got into higher ed more of the role that I was looking to get into more than the organization. And, you know, stayed there for 8.5 years and really, really fell in love with higher ed and what it does. I'm a product of higher ed, first gen student. I don't know if I always thought really about what that meant until I think being part of the community college scene and seeing how much education impacted and touched the lives of people in our community. And yeah, when I left higher ed for 3.5 years and when I came back, that's what drew me back. The college's, purpose. And that really resonated with me. I was a point where I think I discovered more of my why, and that very
Mm,
much aligned with that.
yeah. What were you doing for those 3 years?
So I went back to public sector. I was my first role as a CIO was at a municipality, a suburb of Tucson, the town of Marana. And so I was running IT there, happened to coincide with the pandemic. So I think I was there a year before the pandemic and then for 2 years through the pandemic. And at that point in time, my former boss here at the college had left. And so there was an opportunity to go back. And it was really, when I was talking about it with my wife, she she's not too impressed with what I do. I mean, she's just kind of like, hey, Isaac does computer stuff. But it was cool. Like when I had this opportunity, she said, do you think you'll be happy there? And I was like, okay, that was confidence that she cares. But it also was like, it was the right question, right? That's not usually the question
Yeah.
someone asks when you're like, hey, I'm thinking about leaving a place. And 100%, I was able to answer that with absolutely. And it's because of what the college does for the community that we live in, the community that we raise our children in. So yeah, that was really important to me.
Shout out to the wise for always asking the hard questions,
Yeah.
right? Like I
Yeah.
always appreciate the hard questions. Sometimes it may come across like doubt, but when you really think about it, it's because they love you for, sometimes they know us more than we know ourselves.
Right.
They love us more sometimes than we may love
Yeah.
ourselves. So when they come from that, perspective, it's truly because they care. And I can
Right.
imagine,
Yeah. Yeah.
so what is your role today? Is it still CIO?
So I'm the chief information officer here at Pima Community College. So yeah, running all things IT, which in these days start turned into almost all things. There's very little that we do at the college that doesn't interface with IT. So it keeps me busy.
All right, Isaac, I got to ask the question because you're in IT. Has AI disrupted or helped IT?
Man, it depends on who you ask. So I'm a big proponent. I think it is. I mean, it is the next revolution. It is the next revolution we're in. It is going to fundamentally, I think, transform everything we do, and I think that includes the educational piece. How we teach, how people learn. That's the part I think as a college, I think many colleges are in the same boat that we struggle with, right? How what we were and what we did has now been flipped on its head, and we have to figure out what that looks like. On the IT side, it's a game changer. It's a game changer in the security aspects, what we're able to do and automate. It's a game changer on our speed to development. I
Mm,
think it allows, I know there's this big fear of it's going to replace people. It's going to change what people do. It allows me and it allows others to do more and do things we otherwise wouldn't do. So it's not something where I'm afraid of it's going to take over the world and replace people. I think it's going to be a massive augmentation to what people can and should do in focusing on those human aspects, the human elements that I think are sorely missing at times.
How many times do you feel like you got to change someone's mindset on the way they believe about AI or see AI?
It's getting less so now. You go back a few years ago and this was the worst thing in the world. And, we took a deliberate approach to get people more and more comfortable. And I think that's worked, but there's still some major detractors, and there's some major detractors in some key areas that we still have to win over. I think if we are going to get where we need to go, especially on the teaching and learning side. Yeah.
Are there classes being implemented around this at the community level?
It's a goal. So we have there's a goal, a chancellor goal, cabinet goal of implementing AI, into academic curriculum. It's really part of our full digital fluency and digital literacy framework. You would think in today's world, what does every student have? They have a smartphone, and you would think that would translate into being able to navigate a digital ecosystem, and that's not necessarily the case. And so, as part of that digital literacy build out, AI is being incorporated into that.
You see a space where, and I don't know if it's already kind of implemented for you guys, where SMS becomes the way we communicate and retain some of our students by just kind of
100,
curating that. I think about your Spotify's and your Netflix
yeah,
is curated for you. I can
100%,
imagine that we can start curating some
100%.
messages around
Yep.
it.
Right. I mean, we have the data. We don't lack the data. I think we lack the use of data. And so, perfect example of SMS is one of our first big AI wins. Is we partnered with the company to do that exact actual student outreach, student engagement. Right. The check in. How are you doing? Right, on a scale of 1 to 5, how are you doing? And the student could say, 2. Well, what's going on? I'm failing my my Spanish class. Did you know? Here are the curated resources available to you. Here are the tutoring offerings. Here are that, right? And it can be as simple as, the student could say, I'm hungry. And did you know we have these resources? We have the student pantry. Come visit us. We have we got your back. And so that platform, though it's AI backed, the interaction with the student is all via text, right? It's the meet them where they are. That's where our students are. They are on their phone. And so we have to, and I think we've done a good job over the last couple of years of changing a lot of our systems to really engage with students where they're at, which is 9 times out of 10 on their phone.
Yeah, man, I love it. So a conversational AI tool, not that's replacing someone, meeting them as you mentioned, where they're at 24/7. I can imagine in
Sure.
different languages. So if someone
Yep,
has a question about something, that they can get that answer. I think it's what's needed.
one hundred
We're,
percent.
we're still. I can't stand when you go and maybe to a website and they give you still that chatbot that is very 3 answers and it
Yep,
keeps you in that loop of
yep,
things. But Isaac, you guys have figured it out, man. I
getting
mean, you
there.
must be excited.
It is. It's very exciting. I don't think there's been a more exciting time to be in IT, or to be in the role of the CIO. I mean, it's if done right, it's game changing opportunities, and you don't get this every time in a career, let alone this type of revolution at this time. I mean, I would argue this is probably similar but faster than when the internet became a thing, and people in IT were trying to figure out what would this mean to their organizations. Yeah, that's pretty
Isaac,
cool.
you remember the iPods? How fast
I do.
iPods went
I do.
away? Like,
I was having this conversation with my daughter the other day. We were driving in the car, and my wife's the Spotify one. She's the one that connects. I still just listen to radio. Why, I
same,
don't know, but I just
same.
do. And I think my daughter's like, why don't you have other music in your car? And I was like, I used to. I had this thing called an iPod. I was like, yeah, before smartphones, you had this device. You put music. Trying to explain the whole thing. So yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Little fancy. We actually had to, put in the cassette that had an aux
Right.
cord connected
Yeah.
to
Well,
it.
there
Oh
you
my
go.
God, the
There you
days,
go.
Isaac. No, man, I do love how times have truly changed and we've been a part of it. Where do you think and what do you see technology doing moving forward? I can imagine you probably got your thumb on the pulse on what's
Yeah.
new, what
Yeah.
we expect to see in the higher ed
I
space.
mean, I think, in higher ed, I think there's going to be a radical shift over the next few years in terms of how do we teach with the technology, specifically the AI, right? So in the past, it was write the paper, and the paper was kind of the proof that you learned something. Well, that's gone. Like that was gone a couple of years ago, right? AI can write the paper. And so it's how do we evolve to ensure that there are learning outcomes are being achieved no longer through the paper, but through other means. And I think, my hope is that it leads to more creativity, more hands-on, more experiential learning, where the proof isn't in the paper, the proof's in the actual product and what the person has done, and translated those skills they've acquired into something. And so, but that's going to take a while to evolve, right? So many teachers have taught a certain way for a long time, and rightfully so, and now that is being challenged, and so it's going to take a few years to get there. But I'm confident we'll get there as an industry. And I think the learner will be better off for it. I think they will be more prepared for the workforce. I think that's some of the biggest things we see, as AI is going to automate and autonomize a lot of what has been entry level work. Entry level work is now going to move to a higher level order of work, and require a higher level of skill. Who's going to close that gap? I mean, higher ed's going to have to close that gap, and turn out students and learners that have those higher level skills to enter what will be a different workforce. It's going to be a big change.
I really want to talk about your role as a CIO. I don't
Yep.
know that many know what that entails. And maybe there's someone right now thinking like, "Hey, man, that sounds very fancy. I know it's a C-suite spot. What does
Yeah,
it look like on a day-to-day basis, man, for
man.
those that are listening or watching?"
I think traditionally what it was, right, it was the role that oversaw IT. It's so much more than that today. I mean, I find, my role is really, the architect, if you will, for how an organization is going to use technology to make a difference, right, to fulfill its mission. And that's very loaded. There's a lot there. I have to have my thumb on the pulse of what we're doing across the board, and then determine how do I think, technology can best help us achieve those goals. And, I'm working on our next 2-year strategic plan. And the beauty is, I've been back over 4 years now in this role. We're moving from less and less true what we could consider keeping the lights on IT. Like, no one cares that we have to, maintain internet. No one cares we have to maintain a network and servers and infrastructure. That's expected. That's like utility. Um, and what I find is our work on that is less and less, and our work is turning more and more into business value. What are we doing to help the institution move forward? What are the technologies and applications that we are, deploying, that students and faculty and staff touch and use on a daily basis to move the institution forward? And that's not where every IT shop is. A lot of IT shops are still kind of just, they think the value is in keeping the lights on, and that's not what organizations need. They need people to, help the business achieve their goals through the use of technology. And so I find my work is definitely more involved in that, on that lens, and it's become way more people centric than technology centric, which I think is the fascinating part.
Wow.
Right? It's a
Yeah,
people
no, for
business.
sure.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah. And do you feel like you're spending a lot more time on security and compliance nowadays with, as we mentioned, something like AI?
Absolutely. That's the part that will unfortunately never go away and continues to have to be a priority. Just as these tools enable us to do more, it will enable the bad guys to do more. And so,
Mhm.
we have to we have to try to stay ahead of that as much as we can. We're never going to be ahead of the bad guys. They're always going to be ahead of us, but it's always trying to stay ahead and think through the mindset of an attacker and what they're going to try to do, and how are we going to continue to secure the institution and do all we can to protect the data that we're.
Love this, man. I'm learning so much about the IT CIO space. I actually used to work for an airline industry, and
Okay.
there was times people was like, "You should definitely get into IT," because I was the guy fixing every single thing
There you
around
go.
the room, and I just loved it. I just loved that when I thought about IT, it's like fixing what's broken, and almost in a sense, like that's how I looked at it. What made you even get into IT, man? Like, how did you find that
Man,
this is your space?
yeah, growing up, I would have never, well, I mean, the space didn't even exist as it does today, but I don't, it's not a field I thought I would get into. But when I went off to college in Maine, I took my first computer science class and was hooked. It was Visual Basic 6, I think, learning to program and just recognizing like you could build something from nothing that did something, right? What was fascinating to me, and I took another class and was like, is this what I'm going to do? Is this what I want to do? And that second class reinforced that's what I wanted to do. And so that was, I studied, my undergraduate was actually interdisciplinary studies between computer science, math, and Spanish. So kind of a hodgepodge of things there. But really, I became fascinated with software development, and that's what got me into IT. My first, you know, 5.5 years was doing that kind of work, software development. Then I gradually, grew into a little bit of project management, and then I got into IT leadership, and that's where the bulk of my career has been. But I'm a developer at heart. I still do development work. That's where I sometimes get too into the weeds, but it's what I'm passionate about. And yeah, so I kind of just got into it by that first class in college, and was hooked.
That's cool, man. And I can imagine when you talk about development, it's even harder now when you have something like AI that you could just really almost develop whatever you want nowadays.
It's
Maybe
easier now because of AI. That's exactly what I've been doing. I've been developing, doing some stuff, and it's, Claude has been my co-pilot for sure, developing all that out. I mean, that's, you can go from a creative idea to a deliverable so much faster. And that's the
yeah.
cool part. Yeah.
I had a conversation with my friend the other day. I said, "Hey, man, like I love that you created another app or
Yeah.
another this, but how is that going to help your business today long term? Stop wasting your." And he's like, "You're right." I'm like, "If you're not going to use it, you're just wasting time at this point." There's so many great ideas, but it's like while we do have the resources, it's still the execution that we have to do. And I think that's where people get lost at. It's like, yo, it's there for you for sure, but it still takes the people, right? The person to go and execute. So when we think that AI is taking our jobs, that's just kind of proof in the pudding. Like, yeah, you can get there, but something has to continue to move that forward, right? And it's usually the human. Guys, continue to like, share, subscribe. More conversations with great leaders in your own backyard you don't even know exist. I'm Efrain. This is Isaac. Catch you in the next one. Latest.